needs and is both affordable and sustainable. Any borrowing undertaken must support the Council's approved capital programme. The strategy also sets the scene for any borrowing that's required to fund the Council's wholly owned housing company Gloriana, along with the Council's own new house building schemes within the housing revenue account. I have to say that since the report was written, the Head of Corporate Finance has received further guidance on how to make the policy more flexible to the Council's needs, especially considering likely investment in both Gloriana and at Purfleet. As such, I'd like to amend recommendation 1.1D to the following. To approve the annual borrowing and investment strategy and the annual minimum revenue provision, the MRP statement for 2015-16, and amend the existing 2014-15 annual minimum revenue provision statement to the following. The Council will set aside an amount each year which it deems to be prudent and appropriate, having regard to statutory requirements and relevant guidance issued by DCLG, and to authorise the Head of Corporate Finance to make any further amendments in the strategy and report to Council to reflect this change. With that, I will open for questions. It hasn't been easy, and I have to say that it will be no easier next year either. Our government grant on a like-for-like basis will be £35 million less next year than in 2010-11, and we're told to expect a further cut of £10 million in 2016-17. The table at the top of page 193 sets out the latest budget position for the year starting in April, and you will see that a surplus of £474,000 is forecast. That allows us the choice this evening whether to accept the council tax freeze grant or to, as the recommendation states, to increase council tax. My proposal to Cabinet this evening is that we don't, on this occasion, follow officer advice and increase council tax by 1.99%, but recommend to Council that we have no rise in council tax this year. However, I have to say that it has been a really difficult decision for me, that 1.99% increase would have brought in the best part of £1 million. But at a time when we're having to make real cuts in services and not just rely on so-called efficiency savings, we have to balance the needs of our communities with the needs of the council. Having no increase means that we will lose the best part of £500,000 for the next financial year, and more every year for years afterwards. But the vast majority of Thurrock residents are still having to deal with the fallout from the government's austerity programme, and we know the vast majority of local people are fed up with being told that the recession's over and that everything's now wonderful. And the vast majority of people that I meet and talk to in Thurrock tell me that they are yet to see this so-called feel-good factor. They've seen the price of food, heating, lighting, childcare, train fares all rise. And if we can help, even if it's just a little, by keeping the council tax bills down, then I think that's something that we should do. Frankly, despite claims to the contrary, I don't believe that people will feel better off or more confident about their finances or their financial future. So I don't believe it's right for the council to make things more difficult for them. So instead, I recommend that we bite the bullet again this year. Now I have to say that with the scale of government cuts still to come, I really don't know if we'll be able to do the same again in years to come.
So I've been out in Chelmsford area this afternoon talking to my residents, and quite frankly there's not any feel-good factor out there, quite to the contrary. People are really hard pushed to make ends meet at the end of the month, and lots of them are not managing to buy their food. So this is going to be welcome, even though it's quite a small increase that was proposed. And secondly, I'd like to bring your attention to page 194, pressures on my budget in particular for 15-16. I'd like to bring you the attention of placements. Some of the pressures described mean that we're under considerable pressure within the budget, the placements budget, in particular around dementia placements, autism placements and nursing homes. Indeed, in the next 4 years, we have got £3 million worth of pressures from autism placements coming through. So that's a risk that is quite extensive. We're reviewing all of our placements, seeking to secure extra funding from NHS for our continuing healthcare. We're renegotiating some of our contracts, getting out of our expensive block contracts, for example, respite care, working very closely with housing to identify properties that can be used to deliver more cost-effective independent living for our people with long-term care needs, and we're supporting carers. And we're also seeking £1 million from the Better Care Fund to support adult social care for 2015-16. Negotiations are going well, but then by no means concluded, and because the NHS locally is still facing a deficit. So we've not reached agreement yet for that £1 million, but we will continue to have those discussions. So that's just some of the pressures, Anita, that we are facing, real pressures for people out there. So just that little bit that we can help with not increasing the council tax as well.
Barbara, thank
For
you.
the council tax recommendation, which I do think is for the reason you mentioned that Barbara spoke about wise, and it's not really to talk specifically about the item itself, but 1.6 notes that we recommend a balanced budget based on the same proposals thus far reported to Cabinet. Now that still, as of the last Cabinet meeting, included the proposed cuts of the Citizens Advice Bureau. Now I'm not proposing to amend that, but I understand there was a meeting between National Citizens Advice Bureau representatives and senior officers of this council, including and you.
Positive and productive. I do believe that there is the kind of outlines of the deal that will keep the Citizens Advice Bureau going. We will, once COB have produced an action plan that they promised to bring forward, we will find the funding that's necessary to keep them going, certainly for next year. I believe they're confident that thereafter they will be able to become an unincorporated CAB, so to move away from the authority and to run their own affairs without needing subsidy from the authority. So I think it was positive. We will find funding next year because none of us want to lose the CAB. I think we all recognise what an important role a good, strong CAB plays in any community. Was there anything? Entirely to you?
I'll do it now. It's 3.14. We're looking through the pressures on budgets that we've been looking at here, and we've sat in this meeting before in Cabinet and talked about the non-delivery of savings, the CIRCOM. They're hearing again as another high-risk budget saving in the coming year. And just to get a sense of confidence that this can be achieved and what we are really going to be doing to make sure that these savings are delivered. I mean, we've talked many times at this Cabinet about the difficult decisions that the Council has made in reducing funding, and the difficult decisions the portfolio holders and officers have made regarding very, very deep cuts to vulnerable people and services that really need the spend, and Serco have failed on a number of occasions to do those kind of savings that they've agreed to. So I just wanted to get your take.
With Serco, quite frankly, we've already spoken about it this evening. Officers and members round the table have worked incredibly hard once again to deliver a balanced budget for next year that protects as far as possible the front line. You know, we are making people redundant here who fulfil really valuable roles. We're doing things that we really don't want to do. You know, frankly, I don't think Serco is pulling away. Richard is right. Year in, year out, we have challenged Serco and their predecessors. We've challenged our strategic partner to deliver their savings, and year in, year out, they fail. I would not have signed up to a strategic partnership where this was signed. We do have experience now with Morrison of exiting failing contracts. I think I would move an additional recommendation, 1.5, would be something like Cabinet instructs officers to bring back a report to us in March, which explores all possible options regarding the future of the Serco contract, up to and including termination. You know, frankly, I think it may well be time to say cheerio to Serco.
Answered it exactly how I wanted it to be answered, so thank you for that. It's about time that, you know, I'm very disappointed. It's about time we dealt with them.
Second question was going to be about Serco. I would actually endorse what the leader said. I think it's about time we did something with this. One of the other things is I have had several conversations with the leader concerning the need to increase the council tax. Before I come in this meeting, my thoughts were still that we should allow the council to increase the council tax because it gives us some of the flexibility to do some of the things that we need to do. But then I listened to what some of my colleagues have said, and yes, we have too many people, and that's in fact one person is too many visiting food banks because they can't afford to pay. We have the local council tax support scheme, which actually is forcing residents that don't have any money to pay council tax. So I'm inclined to go along with the recommendation, which is to not increase council tax.
But in the new point about Serco, it just is long overdue, as what's been said. I mean, we're trying to make some really tough decisions and still trying to move the council forward with new innovative ways of doing things, of just trying to make sure that we're still moving and not stagnating, and Serco make it difficult all of the time. And this just can't be, I can't welcome this enough.
Thanks, Leader. Nothing exceptionally new to add to that, just to welcome the decision on the council tax. I think we all know that speaking to our residents up and down the borough, people are still hurting at the moment in the recession. There are real difficulties that they're facing financially, and anything that we can do to help out, I think, is a welcome break for them. I know there are no easy decisions to make at this stage. I think we left those behind a long time ago in the process of cuts that we've had to move through. However, I think it is right to commend officers and portfolio holders for the work that they've done to get us to this situation. And I think we need to make sure that we are continuing to go through that process in a way that really does safeguard as much as we can in terms of the value that the council can deliver to residents, and I think that's important as we go forward. On that note, I agree with the points on Serco that were raised as well. I think it's long overdue that we've been able to really draw significant savings from them. They have to be seen to be doing their part, the savings that we have to make.
Indicated, we will move to vote. In accordance with Cabinet Procedure Rule 2.19, a recorded vote will be undertaken in respect of recommendations 1.1 to new 1.7 outlined in the report. We will vote recommendations 1.1 to 1.6 on block, and this will be recorded. Democratic Services will read out the name of each member, and I would ask that you use your microphones and clearly indicate whether you are voting in favour of the recommendations, voting against the recommendation, or abstaining. We need to do this because Eric Pickles insists upon it. So, just for absolute clarity, 1.5 is amended that Cabinet recommends to Council a council tax increase of 0%. And we have a new 1.7 that Cabinet instructs officers to bring back a report to us in March, which explores all possible options regarding the Serco contract up to and including termination. So with that, I will now ask Stephanie to conduct the recorded vote.
Thank you. So, Councillor Garish.
4.
Councillor Holloway. 4. Councillor Bernardo. 4. Councillor Rice.
4.
Councillor Smith.
4.
Councillor Spate.
4.
Councillor Worrell. 4. And Councillor Kent.
4.
Absolute minimum that we have to increase it by. There are some key budget changes, and these can be found in table 5 of the report before you tonight. And to look at that table, the budget pressure of 535k are inflationary based, and this includes salaries and contract rises, and therefore these are largely unavoidable. The HRA has made efficiencies of 258,000 within its sheltered housing review, which will finance half of the budget increases, and therefore we have a net overall budget increase of just 276k to finance. The minimum rent increase allows the HRA to do this, and in addition an extra 710,000 is being invested into stock to deal with planned maintenance projects that will directly benefit our tenants.
We will prioritise damp and associated mould works with the budget, with the extra budget, as well as increase the very popular planned fencing programme. So this is, the housing revenue has managed to increase its level of budget reserves, which will allow continued investment into our stock and regeneration programme. So all in all, I think that again it's been a pretty good year, and I'd like to thank the housing team for all the work that they've done.
Delivering homes that get bandied around. I think if you look at the way in which the houses that have been built have come online, there's a strong correlation between a decline in house building and the economic recession. You'll also see from this report that that number is increasing this year and is forecast to increase again next year, which I think reflects in part some of the good work the council's been doing. I mean, we've seen growing confidence, I think, in Thurrock as a destination. We've been working hard as a number of teams in bringing forward new jobs. We've seen, I mean, we've said it many times this meeting, but you know, the DP World, at the Thames Enterprise Park, at Purfleet, at all of these different field report, different places. And I think we are doing a lot of work to regenerate high streets and do these kind of place-shaping regenerations that make Thurrock an attractive place to live. I think the second point I'd like to make is about where development takes place, and the report notes that well over 90% of the development that has taken place has been on previously developed land, which is in excess of our target. And council officers are straining every sinew to encourage development on previously developed and brownfield sites, and I think that is the right approach. And I think the third point is less specific and is more general. You'll see from this report that we have lots of ambitious house building targets that are going forward. And you'll also see in this report the outlined timetable for the core strategy. And I've said it before in council, I've said it before in cabinet, and I've said it before in the planning committee before I became the portfolio holder. This is an absolutely vital document, and I will continue to urge everybody within the council and without it to get involved in the development of that document, because that is what will shape the future of this borough. It shouldn't be an office that is decided on in back offices in this building, but it should be something that belongs to everybody. Thurrock is forecast to grow in the coming years, and a large part of that growth is coming from within the borough, which means that as we sit here, not literally as we sit here now, but at this point in time, there are kids in schools in this borough who, in years to come, are seeing their chances of owning or renting a home in the community they grew up in, where they live, where they want to work, recede. And it is vital that we push this forward and that people can participate and really help to shape the place that they live. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Richard, thank you.
Prosecution on behalf of us for illegal money lending. There was a new regulation, Financial Services Act 2012, that was enacted. At the time, the belief was that our existing protocol would cover us. But since then, we've had further legal advice that actually says, just to make sure that we are covered, that we need to reconfirm that protocol. Basically, it means that Birmingham City Council will be our agent and will be responsible for any prosecutions and looking after our tenants for any illegal money lending that goes on. There's only one comment that I would like to make, and that is in the appendix where it says WCC. We're actually going to ask them to get those initials changed to something that's a bit more appropriate for Thurrock Council. We're not sure what WCC meant, whether it was Westminster or Worcester, but we'll get that changed to something that says Thurrock. On the recommendations, if it's appropriate, I think we'd just like to amend 1.3 so as it actually includes in consultation with the relevant portfolio holder. Other than that,